Okay, we are ready. Let us begin. So, today, today we are going to start with some more character art, though I don't think, ideally, I should hope, we are not going to spend the entire stream working on this. As we remember, yesterday I remade this sprite for a wonderful class representative Tiger. I touched it up a little bit after the stream. The black eyelash, having just one of it, it was bothering me. I'm still not 1000% satisfied, but it'll look good for now. Next, I want to tackle a lovely twin sister. So, in that regard, what do we have so far? We have this hairless outline. Now, I do have a pretty good idea of what I want her to look like. If we add the hair layer, obviously this is for a different image. Even if we move it, yeah, this doesn't, obviously it's not good, it's not drawn for the purpose, but it doesn't look horrible. You get the basic idea. The basic idea being that she, being a rebellious girl, Squilly has dyed her hair an electric blue. Now, what I don't like about it is it's hard to parse for what it is. The colors, there's not a lot of contrast in this picture, I'll have to say, which is partly intentional and partly, well, it isn't. Let's take the old image as reference to see where we want to end up roughly and see where we go from there. So, the old image looked something like this. It was more zoomed in. As you'll see, it barely catches her shoulders, where nowadays there is well, her axles and sort of her chest is on screen, and I think I like that. I think I want to keep that framing, at least I want to keep it for the twin sisters, as I suppose would only make sense, because, well, yeah, them being twin sisters, it would only make sense that they are visually reminiscent of each other. Towards which end, I've decided that they are identical twins now, so they have quite the same body shape. Now then, let's think. What do we want to do? Roughly this, but not exactly, which is always a wonderful instruction to give to an artist, I am sure. So I want to have an image which has better contrast. If we compare this, it's hard to tell what starts and what begins here. So consequently, I am thinking I do want to keep the colors roughly, so I do want to keep it a kind of blue on blue theme, but given that her dress is a very dark shade, it seems logical that we go the other way. Perhaps we take this metallic grayish color and use that as the base, so that we can then use that as base. Maybe still use the darker blue, sure. If we go by the same scheme as Tiger up here, then we've got the base color for the front, possibly a darker blue for the back sides, the shadowed parts to imply a depth, and a little bit of sheen, which would be these brighter pixels up here. So, on that, I suppose, let us get started. The basic idea being, she's got relatively long, straight, falling hair. Yeah. Okay. Well, off we go. No, but better, so that I can have the old for reference. She's quite an egghead, actually. But how much does that matter, really? Are these? Sorry, I'm just wondering, are these literally... Strictly speaking, these tones are distinct, but practically they are not. Awesome. So, our base color is going to be this bright here, although, you know, looking at it now, I'm not sure that'll work out, because it's got such low contrast with the background. So maybe we don't do that after all. Options. We can change the hair color, we can change the background color, or yeah, that's kind of it. So we have different options for what to change the hair color into. Let's imagine this, yeah? Let's imagine it's bright, it's an electric blue. So, in that regard, I'm just gonna show the hair layer so that I can draw over it. I'm going to have to refine this because this is too large. This is no longer fit for this zoom level, but we can start working on it. It is also uneven, which is actually not great. I would love for it to be even, so let's try that then. And then after the initial zoom on top, we try going down pretty quickly too. So something like that. This is 4 pixels. Something's still not even. Ah, this is including that pixel, this 4. Alright. Now, we do want to leave space, I think. Is it for the entire ear or just for part of it, showing off her earrings? Okay. Do something like that. Partly intruding, but somewhere there. Show off more of the ear here. Okay, and then just she does have this she does have the falling lock, doesn't she? Okay. Right, so that falls down onto there like so. Yep. What's it? It's a diagonal on the left and straighter on the right. Gotcha. Something like that? Okay. Rough shape. I don't like it. Wow. Yeah, okay. I'm not sure what I want, but this I do not like. Obviously, it's not finished yet, so for the moment, let's keep going and see where we end up. Now, we want her to have a not too floofy outwards, so it's mostly straight out of here. Okay. Well, if you want straight, you do straight. It is... yeah. As stated, first off, it's making something. Make something, you can refine it. In digital especially, nothing is final. You can always change it. Right. So, having drawn more of it, I still absolutely detest this color. We are not using that base color. So, let's explore our options. We can tint it like so. I hate that less. You know, looking at it like this, it's not finished, but I feel the contrast isn't the worst against the background. What I am going to do is I'm going to immediately do the opposite of what I said previously, and I am going to make it less symmetrical. Naturally, it's easy to start with symmetry, so it's usually a good idea to do so, and from there, once you've got something, you can work out how exactly you want it. It is better to have something than you can tell, well, do you like this? Do you not? Usually you've also got a pretty good idea of in which direction you want to move. Like when I had the hair like this, I knew that's far too bright. So I wanted a darker, more muted color. I might even go further from here. But let's see where this is going. I'm just gonna real quick, because I'll be looking at this reference a good bit. Oh, no, OBS does not like that. One moment, fixing. No. Alright, we are not doing that. My bad. Apologies. The capture should come back momentarily. It should. I may have to restart Game Maker. Yep. Right. I swear, this has never happened before. So, we have learned, do not detach workspace. OBS doesn't like it when there are multiple instances of the same program. Well, here we are. Righto. Now then, that's that. So I suppose we are just going to be tabbing around and looking at the reference image a lot. So, in the basics, how does this curve go? It goes very close to the brow on either side. So let's model that. it's also got this little falling log here. So you're on the correct layer. It's always a bother to unravel when you've made a mistake on your layering, although it's not the worst, but it's better not to let it happen. Alright, so you graze the log here and here. Then there's this 1 pixel. And from there... Ah, that's actually up 1 further. So? Yes, but I don't like that. I actually prefer this view of it. Now. I still don't like the color. What if we do go with this? Right? What if, hypothetically, this is what it is? You know, I still don't hate that. I need something darker still to make contrast, which is going to be an absolute joy, together with the dress being a darker border down here, but I will make it work, I imagine. The original image has these scattered pixels, but I'm not sure I'm going to be using those, because welcome to pixel art, we don't have the resolution to do anything fancy. That's just how things are. There's not a lot of hair to go around in general right now. I think we want to extend it out a little. And so the process repeats, doesn't it? Yes. Right. Well, it is a process. You iterate. Try something, see if it works. If it doesn't work, try something else and change it. Listen, I need to put a highlight on this, or I am going to absolutely go insane. This monocolor, it drives me mad. So, let's see, shine is going to be, it's not even going to be that, let's say it's this color. So it is roughly at the top of the forehead. It describes a little halo. Something like this, to imply where the light source is and the shape underneath. Although in this case, she's looking straight forward, even though not at the camera, but she is being seen front on, just like me right now. So she wouldn't be turned much. So it would mostly be an even-ish halo, which tells me currently it isn't, but maybe that's fine. Maybe that is fine. So let's see. So that is the basic shape as I had it. I think I'm not perfect on the right side yet. No, I am not. With that, we want to go up 2 pixels above the eyelash. Right here. There we go. then that's the shape as I had it. Wonderful. So we've got our starting point properly scaled for the new image. Ooh, I like this track. For context, the music that's playing is, what do you call it? DRM free, but I did buy it from the artist with explicit licensing permission to do this, to play it on stream. I may even include it in the game. That was kind of what I had in mind. So I'm exploring what it sounds like and what tracks are like. It's a good variety, really. Even if I've just rather chucked every track into a huge playlist. So, let's think. From here. From here it is looking unrealistic because right now it is a single monocolored blob with no depth within it. How do I show depth? By making a darker region, which is at the back. At least this space here would be that. I didn't leave myself a lot of dark to go with, but that is who she is. It is supposed to be a rather cool character. Not perhaps cool in the 90s kids way, although, well, she is just that. No, it is supposed to be a character with cool colors, with a muted scheme. Towards that end, it is intentional that there's not a ton of color variety in this image. As you see, it is backgrounds, grayish cornflower blue, blue dyed hair with a matching top, and there's the shine. Before we continue on this, I just noticed a little thing. If we take this off, so there is a realistic neck, but right now I'm breaking one of my rules. What do I mean by that? Yeah, look. So the neck has this curve as you go on to it, right? Humans don't have sharp corners. But the way I've drawn the dress here, it does imply a sharp corner, though certainly it's not impossible. Like, if the collar is close, then it does make a sharp turn, but the way the human eye intuitively reads that, I've got a feeling that I'd prefer for it to be more open, like so that you see the curve as it travels upwards. Because at this resolution especially, you need to be respectful of what the eye sees. You need to be respectful of how it will be parsed. As such, there's no shame in being explicit. Sometimes you just need to make it obvious what's what. Likewise, I've just noticed I'm going the wrong way. If I'm saying the light source is roughly up here to on top, then that chin shadow does not make sense. So let's see if we can't fix that. The throat region is an odd number of pixels. No, it's not. No, the throat region isn't, but this shadow is. Okay, that's fine. Really, because the light source is a little to the left. So we can move the shadow, yay, and I think that's fine already. It may be a bit too far down. What would happen if we were to... how do I do this? What would happen if we were to pick this, shuffle it up a bit, and fill out, oopsie, fill out the remainders? I don't like it. No, I've got my rules, let's stick by them. I think. I'm not sure if this is perfect, of course. Like, I've never gone to art school. I don't know. But this is my style so far as I've cultivated it. So this is what we're going to stick with, this 2 up to 3 pixel chin shadow. I don't know, it's worked out so far. Oh, right then, back onto the hair, which certainly deserves to be the focus. So let's think. It's kind of a tangled mess. Certainly the least of it that we know is these 2 areas here are going to be in this shadow, as it were. Then I'm not sure what else I want to do. Then we're going to have to experiment. I just like this kind of 3/4 circle design, right? Where you've got a peak past their face, but a lot of it is in the front and is visible, as of course only makes sense. But let's think, let's see. Can we make it something different, perhaps? Because his sister also very much has that going on. Also, that hair needs to be floofier. It is too exact a fit right now. But this is... I want to call it a bowl cut, even though it's not. It's far too long to properly be that, but like it's a long bowl cut, essentially. Okay, so let's try that. What if all her hair is at the back of her head, so she doesn't have these streamers coming down? How does that manifest? Let's see. Option 1. All of this is the darkness. I can already tell I don't love it, but keep going and see what happens. Right. Not in love with that. So instead, I think we make sure that this transitionary area, it's just cut off. Bam. Obviously, this is not the prettiest. Kind of looks like she's got Princess Leia buns now. This is not the prettiest, but it's the idea that counts. So, try that. Maybe. Realistically speaking, if we think about this, if she's got this, my god, it's a mullet. If she's got this some on top and waterfall down the back kind of cut, it wouldn't be in front of her ears, would it? So we may want to go so lewd as to fully show them. I know, horrible. But let's try we finish up here. So. Vaguely, something like that. Needs refining for sure. But it's a different design, and I like that. I do want all my idols to be distinct and unique, after all. So, what do I want to have continue happening? There is one problem that I see, which is I wanted to have somewhat unkempt hair with this lock over here and with the fall over, and that doesn't really gel with having a fully tamed cut like up here. Let's see, let's think again. It is currently uneven as well, but so we've got two options. One is to remove the unkempt hair, cute though it is. The other is to embrace it and make this slightly longer, but then, once again, this would be a weird style indeed. Not physically impossible, for sure, but it would be weird indeed if she's got it over her ears here, but at the same time it is tied back and falls back here. It makes me think of the mice from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Not sure why, I'm not sure if that's how they have it. But let's think on that idea. So, what's going on? Oh, there we go. Perfect. Let's see. This is inevitably going to end up like a tomboy, isn't it? Oh, it's fine. Again, experiment, see what happens. You can judge it afterwards. This is definitely too little. And I am not in love with this, I have to admit. Also, I appear to have put a pixel where it does not belong. Where is it? It's presumably on the skin layer. It is not. Is it on the reference? No. Yeah. Okay. Well, looking at it in the small preview up here, since it's not intended to be viewed blown up at large like that, it's going to be more like this. Looking at it in the smaller preview, there's something here. I'm not that good yet, but we are approaching something. So, Consequently, what do I want? I want to fill out these holes up here. Let's say we do something like that. Frame it more. Yeah, I don't hate that. I'll be honest. This, maybe we even go like so. Imply that it is being pulled back. Or just a 1 pixel. Ah, the beauty of pixel art. With single pixel lines especially, like this diagonal here, this very strongly implies that something is being held, it's being pulled tightly backwards. So I don't hate that. I don't. I do need to briefly think. That I don't like to draw characters with visible ears for partly that reason. Maybe I have an idea, which is that puts it behind the skin layer. Wonderful. But maybe we make it clear that these are earrings. Does that make it clearer? She is supposed to wear them because she's such a rebel. I had them as the single pixel that is more of a stick in and not a hangy offy ring. I've such a wonderful vocabulary. The problem is, I think the problem is this pixel right here. Or maybe it's that it's not on the other side. That's an option. So, what I'm thinking is, we got ears, but there's literally no transition between them. But maybe shading will fix that. So, let's do a first pass, and once again we face the conundrum of I can either use a pre-baked color that is slightly darker than the skin tone, or I can have GameMaker do it for me. I think we all know where this is going. So, very slight alpha. You do not want to mess around with black. So, just do a slight splotch of alpha here. Or maybe, maybe we do actually have the hair fall slightly more over it. Like so. Don't hate that. I do not hate that. Maybe the ears just are too big, but if we... Let's launch the game real fast. Let's compare. Because I'm pretty sure this is styling as I have used it before. Anytime you're ready, OBS. There we are. Yeah. Let's compare. Yeah. So... this is the style that I've drawn them, but... they are not commonly visible. That is true. Almost every character has them partly or completely covered by hair. It's only Lucky and Tiger that have... And... Well, yeah, Lucky and Tiger have one visible. Others have bits. So that's why I'm thinking... Maybe I just don't want to show both then. Let's think about that. So what I've done usually is I have either this, so I've got a visible barrier between face and ear to distinguish what it is, or I'm having it largely partially covered. What I haven't done in any character sprite is to have both ears perfectly visible. Even in the... where is it? Yeah. Even in her old version, I've only got parts visible, and I've also got the fallen log to provide a border. So, consequently, let's say that it's uneven. It's like so on this side, and on the left side we do show it, but maybe a bit less bad. Do we want the shading then? Thinking. There's... I like the basic idea, and I think we are going to rely on the old trick of making ears look good by not showing the ear. Only showing a little part of it. And in that regard, maybe we move the earring pixel back up, which does give us better space to move the hair into place. Like so. Don't hate that. Sure, it's because I've removed the parts that I hate, but who's to count? Now. What else remains to do? It's a bit flat, I'll admit. So I think I want to fill out and work on the curvature of it. On the right side of the image, it is simultaneously, it is wider, it's thicker, or is it? Not really. Like, if we compare, using the earring as a reference point, it goes 2 pixels out from the earring on both sides. It's just that on the left side, well, on the right side of the image, it's thicker. Which is fine, it's intentional. I can also try, what if we erase this out? No, I like that. It is thicker, of course, so that's why it appears thicker, where on the left side of the image, it's not quite that long. Well, What if we try that? Connect it up. Not a fan. I do like this close hug around being pulled into the back side. All the way here, let's try this. Have it roll off and be less of a straight waterfall. Although in this specific case, it's more that, well, it's both. It's both that it spreads out with distance, yeah, hair being super light, it spreads out, and also that some of it is laying on the shoulders, though most of it is continuing further downwards. Okay. Looking it over again now, it certainly still got this kind of androgynous quality that I'm not a super big fan of. To be clear, it is perfectly fine for characters to vary, but that's the thing. This character is supposed to be quite firmly feminine, so I would like her to portray that. So, no, stop talking around it. I'm just gonna quite literally extend all of this upwards and outwards. See if we like it. Extend to give her more volume. That does look more than a little silly. It needs it needs better lines. But the concept's there. After all, someone who's got hair all the way going down to her back wouldn't... well, it's going to be rather long on every side. It's just going to be tamed on the front. This is harder than I'd imagine. I think what's bothering me right now is the straight lines on the side. I want those to be a more gentle kind of curve. So let's try. For that, we are going to pull this out. I am violating a law of art here. There we go. You always want the transition to be gradual. So if we are going 2 pixels up for 1 pixel over here, then we don't want... I mean, certainly, of course, you can. There are situations where you should do it, but generally, you don't want this kind of behavior where it's first it's diagonal, then it's vertical again, then it's diagonal again. It's generally better that you stick with a slope that continually increases in the same direction. Makes things rounder. I'm thinking about giving her the fallen hair back, to be honest. I'll put this here. Put that there. Yeah, I do like that. I like that. I can't lie. I don't like this larger version of it, but a little bit fallen. I don't hate. I'm also thinking that it is in large part intentional that these characters are, well, partly identical, being identical twins and all, but also expressing themselves differently. For which reason, I suppose, you know, if we wanted to go wild, I could give her something like this half-shaved, half comb over, like, what's her name? Sombra from Overwatch. Personally, I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of that kind of cut. It just seems weird to me. Also, let's not forget, this game is set in the year 2004. So, we need to think back 20 years of culture. I don't think it was that big at the time. It wasn't unheard of, but generally, I think I would want these idol girls to rather have fuller heads. So, to that end, you know, now that I've given back the dropping hair, I'm wondering, should I cut it back down? So should we thin it a little bit again? Remove the top layer, make it thinner, make it fit to gravity more. This side is going to be a border, I can already tell. But let's try that. Don't hate that. I'll be honest. Do not hate that. It's a tighter cut for sure. But it might just be the contrast that I want. Where Tiger has a rather open, almost unkempt, that envelops her on all sides. Squally, in contrast, is more open. I will have to cut down more on the right side, I think. Let's see. Maybe we can try something like that. But we do still want it to cover the side of the ear. Largely, but maybe we show a part of it. Or maybe we keep it like so. This might be fine enough for an initial, like, first draft. Obviously, art is never finished. You just stop working on it. So there's no need to push yourself to perfect it on the first go. You need to let it rest and think on it a little bit. Come back to it, you'll know what you want to do. Okay, to that end, let's see it in the context. Load it into the game, put this over here in the old versions box. Ugh. I do appreciate that between the multiple versions Squally has gone through, the basic shape is still the same. I don't know, there's something about this fallen bit that really just intrigues me. I like it. For that though, I'm going to need to rename this. Yeah, that'll do. I just want to keep it in source control if nothing else. Then, as always, save this. Then I need to perform the slight step of first off turn off the reference layer, and we need to upscale it. I could make the game work with the tiny sprites. This is 32 by 32, so it is at 1/6 the resolution that will actually be shown, but that would be pointless effort to do during the gameplay. So why really is the question to be asked. Instead, I just pre-bake it at the correct display size, which does result in that every pixel we've just drawn is represented by a 6x6 square. And that way GameMaker can draw the sprite at its full size. So it's cheating a little bit. This isn't, I'm not limited to the full resolution here. Also, I've just realized I do not have Squally here. That's not perfect. Do I have you here? I think I do. Oh no, I don't. That's fine. Right. I just need to go into the saves and really quickly create a save that does have all of them unlocked. Fortunately, the saves are accessible, I'm going to say. Strictly speaking, I've created a custom file format. Practically, it's JSON. So, you can't see what I'm doing. That is fine. There. That, okay. Save game hacking complete, for which I'm going to need to restart the game because I'm pretty sure it loads the included files, that is the save data, as the game starts. It might not, but it's better to be safe. So, if I've done it right, there we are. Okay. Look at it in context. It looks like a crane neck, I'll be honest. Something about it just seems off. Even though, right, this is factually the exact same size. The neck is the same height. It starts in the same place. Like, I've literally copied Tiger's body shape onto here. All that I've done is I've moved the head slightly. Well, it's a deep cut of the top. So maybe we move that up slightly, make it look less tall. Otherwise, I'm not sure what I'd do. Other than that, my fears do come manifest a little bit, which is that add size it's hard to read the back for what it is. It's hard to read it as hair. So it looks like she has significantly less of it than she actually does. Options for that are I can brighten it, is going to be the first thing that I'll try. Other than that, I can also try to connect it better. But I think increased contrast between this and that, and just make it brighter altogether, because it looks very much like a shadow as things are. So, there we go. Having plugged it into context, we now know more about it. Having tried it, we can tell what we want to change about it. Is that going to be enough, you figure? The thing is, there's only so much that I can go. If we look at the hue, saturation, and value sliders, which are, I mean, all color systems are arbitrary, but I find that this system generally, at least saturation and value, make more sense intuitively. As you can see, it goes from bright to not bright, and we are already working with a very dark base color, which means there's not much to go. Of course, what I could do is I could try something like this, have a brighter base color. That way I can give it a less dark background, which is still going to be distinct, and I kind of like that. I do like that, yes. We likes it. But to that end, this pixel needs to be properly colored. There we are. Do I want to? No, let's try that. As things stand, she's got kind of a flat head top, so let's try adding those 4 pixels on top. Yeah, that really does even it out, makes it more circular, removes the completely flat line on top, which was quite stark since it transitioned from 2 pixels across to like 8. Alright. Yeah, I don't hate that. I kinda like it now. Yes. Unfortunately, I need to reshuffle the sprite again. Normally, like if I'm just fixing a tiny bit of color, I can also do it on the full-sized version, but drawing new pixels is generally better that I do it on a small version, and from there then upscale it again. It's not like this process takes long. Theoretically, I'm sure I could automate this, but it's kind of not worth the bother. Also, I am torturing GameMaker enough as it is. I'm doing a lot of things that GameMaker doesn't approve of, that GameMaker wasn't made to support. So I want to be kind to it, and what I mean by that is when I move and rename and change assets, I want to do it from inside GameMaker, so that GameMaker is aware that I'm doing it. Okay. Just loading up the save again. There we go. So, seeing this in context, I've just noticed I fixed the hair, but I did not fix the dress. So, let's just pull all of that up. Fill out the gaps. Yes. I do want her to wear a deeper V neck, but yeah, I like this. Gives it space for the neck to rise up and slightly constrains the visible neck area. Alternatively, let's try something else, or possibly both. I think let's try this, but also try putting something in here. If the problem is that there's too much skin and it looks like her throat goes on forever, then what do? We put something in between to interrupt how this looks and help the viewer understand what's really going on. To that end, there. Not sure I'm a fan of that yet, but drawing at this resolution, you really don't need much to make all the difference. Maybe both? Maybe it's too wide? I'm just experimenting right now. Don't like that. See. In the realm of what is physically possible, well, it certainly is possible that she got a piercing in her sternum or something, but let's not go quite that far. So. Honestly, I prefer the ears with the shading on. Right. So, what I'm talking about is something has to physically support itself in order to be on. That's gravity. So it would have to be a chain or something like that. Could also put a choker on her, but what is a thing? I mean, they've always been a thing. The bigger question is, would she wear something like that? Personally, I don't get the point, but hey. This... I'm never gonna tell people they can't. That's right. That would be a relatively dark shade. Well, now it just looks decapitated. Okay, so it would have to be a brighter shade, something like that. Don't hate it? Don't hate it, but I don't like it. I like counteracting the curve given by her grin up here, but no, if we do put something in here, then I would want it to be more of the chain type. Maybe that. I mean, let's try. Try it, see how it looks. After all, I can't judge it by any metric other than how it looks at size in the game. But that at this point we're fussing over the details, so I think we can consider this largely a success so far, which means in a little bit I'm going to be taking a break here, but after that we can get to some coding. Hooray! Right, let's put you up here. Well, she's not the only one to wear visible jewelry, though she certainly has the most of it. But Crimson has their little scarf going on. Butterfly has the ghost hunting amulet. So it's not the worst. I don't hate it. I really don't. I don't hate it. I'm still not sure on the curvature of the hair here, but I think we call this good, and I'll refine it at some other point. Okay. Call that good. So, as I have just promised, I will be taking a break at this point. Stand up, stretch, go pee. My bladder demands it. Recommend that you do the same. It's important that you get a bit of variety, even if not exercise. I mean, I don't know what you're up to. I'm not going to judge. The point is, use those legs every so often. I'll be right back. Don't go too far. In a few minutes, we'll start working on the sound credits, I've decided. See you then. Okay, time to resume. No. Time to continue forward on our beautiful little game and progress towards getting a demo version out. Because I want people to be able to see this and share the game that I'm making. Even though it's going to be quite a while before I can say I finished this. Fully aware of that. Music, chill, please. Just a little bit. Thank you. Right. It's gonna be a moment, but hey, I'm going to do what I can, and I don't think I can do much more than that. So, still not in love with the curve, but that's a refine later. So, I shouldn't have closed the game, actually. So, what are we going to work on next? I'll show you as soon as OBS picks up the game. So, here's the start menu. You can start a new game. You can load a saved game. You can fiddle with the options. I've just realized something that I want to implement here. You can fiddle with the option. And it's intended to give credits where credit is due. I have created most everything that is in this game by myself. I've drawn all the assets and I've written all the code, but specifically the fonts are not my own. They need credit, and so do the sound assets. If we mute the music for a moment, this is certainly going to be the most common sound that you hear. I know, I like it, it's a papercraft game, but there's also other sounds. Music goes back on. So those, in some instances, I need to credit them, and at any rate, even when the licensing would allow for no credit usage, I'd still want to, like, we're all in this together here. We're just trying to make it get a tiny bit of, well, I'm not even going to say we're trying to get popularity so much as we're just trying to let people enjoy what we make. That's certainly what motivates me, and I imagine, or I should hope, it's similar for the wonderful people who have made assets available for my use. So it seems only fair that we are properly attributing what I've gotten from whom. Fortunately, I have kept track of where it all comes from, so it won't be too difficult. So let's think, let's plan. I want to have a scrollable list here on this screen, taking up, well, the entire screen largely. Something similar to the saved game list. As you can see, you can scroll this up and down. I've got quite a few saved games because I don't bother to clear them out. Now, I have this. This is actually a generic component that I've made. It is quite fancy. If you're familiar with GameMaker terms, it uses a surface internally to draw its components, and then it draws out a specific part of that surface. It's really cool, but that's not the important bit here. So, what I want is a scrollable box like this, which shows us all of the sound assets and who made them, as well as a play sound button, I feel, allowing us to play the sound so that we know what context we're looking at it. Likewise, I want, sometimes I've chopped up a single sound asset into multiple individual sound effects. Some sounds are like that, there are many takes inside and you pick the ones that work for you. So for that I could make an individual entry for each usage, but what I want to do is rather I want to be able to select each individual one. So we have one horizontal row entry with a play button, and it's got like arrows on it to let you select between all the different instances and tell you how many usages there are. Okay, so I've got a pretty good idea of what I want to make. Let's dive in. So, what are we going to need to do? We need to go to the menu, we need to create a thing, just a sound credits box, which has individual instances of a sound credit, we'll call it. It's got individual instances of that, and each instance has those parts. It has a it's got the title of the sound assets. Maybe it's got a link, maybe it's a link button. We can try that. It's got a play button to play the individual sound asset. Right. And then some more text information. So this is quite simple. Let us get started. So, to begin with, I am going to... First I'm going to create the scrollable box, or the, the larger credits manager object. I feel like the music needs to chill a little more. There we go. So this is going to be in the menu. You don't have to group quite as extensively as I do, but I find it's rather useful. This is going to be on the credits screen, just so that we can tell what's where and where it belongs. So this is going to be objects credits list, and this doesn't inherit from anything. So, if you're not familiar with GameMaker, honestly, it's rather simple. You have objects that, when you create an instance of them, they do stuff. So, right now, the credits list does nothing. It exists. But that's already something. So we can go to the room handler for the menu, which GameMaker insists doesn't exist, but it does. So this is the master object of the start menu, which is responsible for instantiating all the larger objects that are not directly dependent on anything else. It also manages the communication between these objects if they aren't directly related. So, I like to arrange my instances as in order as you would read the screens. So since there are 6 screens in the menu, going from top to bottom, right here at the end, we'd have the credits list, which is created. We have got a screens constant where I've already put the coordinates of the credits. It's quite simply the top left corner. So far, I don't have anything clever to put here. So what we're doing is we are targeting the top left corner of the credits screen, which is the bottom right screen, though we don't need to know or care in this context. We just know that we are targeting that corner, and then we're going an additional 20 display pixels to the right and down. Positive X is right, positive Y is downward. And just fill in the other properties. We want this to be at the table depth, so this doesn't matter much in this context, but things that are visually on top of other instances are supposed to be. The depth system helps us manage this. That's inherent to GameMaker. Tell it that we want a credits list, and there's some thought to be given as to, does the credits list just know what the credits are, or do we need to explicitly tell it? I think either way will work. It really doesn't matter much, but what I want to do here is I do want to tell it explicitly out of the room handler, these are the credits that you should display. So consequently, we are going to extract the objects from where we've defined it. Currently, of course, we haven't defined it at all, so that's not going to work. So before we can continue on that, we need to define what our credits are now. That is here. It is here. Wonderful. So this is an object game. At the start, this initializes a bunch of data that the game is going to need. Like this. Make it an array so that we can iterate through it easier. And then I don't want to make this in a struct type. The difference being, sure, I can just write that this object, this credit is to at this point I need to glance at my notepad. No, notepad, you don't need to keep that, that's fine. Right. So, its name is vector drop underscore heavy. Paper needs to be a string. Heavy paper near mono. So I can do it like that, yeah. I can just fill in the data and that would work, but I prefer a little bit more type safety. which is by using a struct with a constructor. Just fill this in real fast. I'm not going to do all of them right now, but I'm going to do one so that I can test that it's actually doing the thing. Okay. And then this is... We also need to give it the asset, which is sound. Actually, I'm going to pull that out of the global sounds struct. There we go. So we could do this and just fill in these properties for each one, but I prefer using a constructor. So going over here, it's technically speaking it's a struct, but practically I'm just using it as a handy constructor which has a list of properties that I can give out. So that is going to be a constructor. You are a credit, and properties we found are name, author, link, license, and asset. Maybe I don't want to use the license as explicitly, but hey, we can always remove it if we don't like it. Then we're going to do some type checking. This is a custom function that I have written because GameMaker doesn't really have a concept of declared types, and that, well, it's a limitation of the language. Because there's no such thing as a declared type in GameMaker, where the language would make sure that only a string can be passed into this variable. There are many languages where you do have to declare your types, and the compiler will make sure that what you pass into it has to be that, otherwise it's going to complain and not run, which sounds bothersome, but really, if you get used to it, then you'll find that it's... I don't want to say it's protecting you from yourself. It's really not that, but if we know that we want these to be strings and a sound, and doing anything else doesn't make sense, then we want to be sure that they are just that, right? We want to be sure that the green screen is having a bit of trouble because the sun is rising, I think. No, because I'm leaning back too far. We want to be sure that the sound asset is actually a sound, or otherwise, when we go to play it, we're going to run into issues anyway. If we have some random number, if we have pi in here and we tell GameMaker play the sound pi, it will actually comply. It will do its best, which is funny and disturbing in my mind. GameMaker is too lenient, but let's not go into that too much. But the point is, we can already know that what we're trying to do is doomed. It's going to either throw an error, or worse, it's not going to throw an error. That is the absolute worst case if we are fundamentally working but what we're doing is nonsense. That's worse than a crash. Well, that's, I suppose, a matter of perspective. I know that the games industry is rather lenient when it comes to minor glitches. Like, if something looks just a little bit off, but it doesn't bother gameplay and most players won't notice, then yes, who is going to care? I am a professional software developer, and in my world it's a little different. In my world, it is better not to do it at all than to do it wrong. But this isn't my world, this is game making, so I do understand the philosophy. Anyway, so having prepared all this, just need to finish out these functions. So this is going to be a super simple struct. This is we call it a data structure, also a plain old Java object. If you are in the Java world, so it takes a bunch of data, and instead of having to individually pass name, author, link, license, and assets to the credit, we can pass it all as one combined. Well, I want to call this a combined object, but that's not quite accurate. Not in the world of GameMaker. In the world of GameMaker, we call it a struct, but it's a simple single data structure. Oh, okay. So, and even though what I would also like to do is I would like to say this is private, meaning you can't change it from the outside. I would like to make it so that after you've instantiated this credit, you can't mess with its fields. But can't do that. GameMaker doesn't have support for that. But it's fine. We're just going to treat credits as though they were completely immutable. So once we give it these properties, that's what they are and they can't be changed. We're going to pretend like that's true. I can't enforce it, but since I'm the only person working on this project, that's fine. Now, just to transfer all this over, it's not named anymore, but the order of the constructor arguments tells us what each of these are. There we go. Now that's the same thing. And we can, well, I can, later, I can fill in all of these credits. I've kept track of them. You know what? I am going to make a tiny change right now, which is I'm going to call this a sound credit. Because there is going to be a difference between sound credits and fonts. I've also used fonts and who knows, maybe other stuff where it wouldn't make sense to give a play button for a font. That's just not how that works, is it? Yo, having that now, we can move on. I'm just thinking. I think I want to make this slightly more fancy. we want to make this a struct where we have the sound credits and the font credits and whatnot. We have all that separated. We wouldn't have to, strictly speaking. We can just give a long list of all the credits that we have, and then we can distinguish, alright, this is a sound credit, this is a font credit, this is whatever's. But I think that's kind of messy and you're not supposed to do it, so it's cleaner to just have different lists. So, now then, we pass this, pass that in there, so we can go back to the credits list. And then here we can say we are expecting that the property of credits is going to be given to us. Again, this is another custom function that I've made, which isn't strictly speaking necessary, but it's nice, especially if there's data that you're not going to use immediately, to make sure that, once again, required data is being provided to the object. We're also going to make sure that it is a struct. At that point, I'm not strictly checking its types, but at that point I think it's fine. So, consequently, I'm just thinking real fast. So we're going to want two types, and I think we just don't get stuck thinking about the huge picture. It is good to have it in mind, it is good to plan ahead, but it is important to just make a thing, right? It is important to just start on something, because you can't build the entire thing all at once. So, to that end, we're going to create the object sound credit with a create event. So, for each of these credits that we were given, specifically, we want to go for the length of the array of sound credits, iterate through it, and make a sound credit object for each entry of the data. There we go. Extract it out, which it's a little faster, and that's important because this code is going to run as the game first launches. So while I'm not usually terribly concerned with performance, this game runs at 5000 FPS. I'm not terribly concerned with performance, but if we are ever going to optimize, then the first launch is going to be that time. So, for each of these sound credits, we want to create instance relative, and then that's going to be some data. It doesn't actually matter what we put here, and I'll tell you why, because we can specify where we are putting this, where we are putting this credit instance, but it doesn't matter because later on it's going to be moved and positioned by the scrollable box. So all that really matters is that it is a sound credit and that we give it the data that it asks for. Now, we could directly give it the sound credits as this, right? We could do this, which would unpack this data, and then the sound credit would have the fields name, author, link, asset, license. GameMaker does that, but I personally prefer to do it more explicitly. So that's... Oh? Oh, that's the closing bracket of create instance relative. I was just very confused. So, we make one of these, and this is already something. Let's the row property not defined, which is data, and is type data should be a sound credit. And then we just show a debug message of the data that we have received. There we go. So this isn't going to do much of anything interesting, but it's not crashing. It's not showing anything, but if we... let's not actually be on the game. If we look at the output log, we can see right up here, we can see the data is being received. It is properly instantiating the objects as we want it to. Wonderful. Now, what do we want this to do then? So, we want to create a scrollable box. For which I don't exactly remember the syntax, so we're just going to look it up. Because I know I've done this before. Yeah. So, okay. This is, again, just make something. It's fine if it's not perfect. Figure something out. Now, this comes from the save selector, which has a relatively small scrollable box. I am over 10. I'm going to want a larger one. So is this all... this doesn't matter. And we would need a padding. Yes, that is correct. Okay. Why do you have a sprite height? Did I give the save selector a distinct sprite? That's interesting. Yeah, I did. That's funny. It doesn't need that. Well, already we are finding our first instance where I'm going to adjust something, but that's fine. So, one thing though, how tall is the save selector? that, we are going to look at the sprite. There it is. And look at it. Look at the small version of it. I do this thing where, since I draw everything at a smaller resolution, I define all of my heights and widths in ×6. So this would be 154 times 6, since it is upscaled by that factor. So I'm just going to say that, here it is, I'm just going to say that this height is fine, and width, I don't know. Our screen width is, it's 1920 by 6, so that's 320. It is supposed to take up most of the screen, but this is going to be defined by how much we need. Let's just say it's this much. Okay. Then we don't quite need to actually show anything yet for the credits list, and I'm thinking we are going to do just a very basic, simple, we're going to do a basic, well, bubble. I'm just going to show you what I mean. As soon as the game loads. Once again, I am not an artist. I'm aware of that. If I get the chance, I want to make these slightly prettier, but I want to make just a rounded box like this safe selector here. But we don't need that to make it work. So we're not going to do that just yet. So that works. Next, we also want the box to be scrollable, so we are going to create some arrows for it. What this does is it puts up the scroll arrows at the side of the box. I've already made that, so that's going to be fine. After that, this is the syntax. That's the important part. We need to add the objects, add the size, add the offsets that we want them. GameMaker, unfortunately, once again. Listen, GameMaker is a wonderful program. It has done a lot of good. It does a lot of good, making game making accessible. I would just wish that it was that if you tell it, I know what I'm doing, let's play properly, that it facilitated that better. But I suppose not. So right. Okay, so we are going to add all of these credits into the box, and then the box is going to take care of displaying them. So right now, of course, the sound credit isn't going to show us anything because it ain't made that way. True, we need to give it something that it can play, that it can show. To that end, we need to create a sprite. Sprite, menu, saved, game. Yeah, that's fine. So I'm not going to reuse this sprite exactly, but largely I'm going to. Whoops. No, I didn't mean to copy the object entirely. I just want a sprite. So I've got this thing going on where I've got two types of color shading. I've got the white paper and the yellowish cardboard. The idea is that something that's more fixed, something that would be on a written form, is on paper, and the more mutable, the adjustable parts are on cardboard, as you are just creating them now. But color is super easy to change. So, wait a minute. Did I reuse a sprite here? I think I did. How do I reopen the inspector so that I can see what sprite we are using? I'm not sure. There. Yep, I sure did reuse that sprite exactly. Let's not do that. But no, I didn't. That's just in here. There we go. Okay. Create a new group here so that we can keep everything related to credits together and separate. Now, that's okay so far. I want it to be bigger. I also want it to be properly named, so that's going to be yeah. Okay. So 250 pixels is probably too much, even with the padding on the side. That would be 238. Since we're taking off 6 pixels on either side. But what have I done? Oh, I scaled it. Well, that wasn't very useful, was it? 238. And leave it on one side. Yes, this is... I can already tell you, this is absolutely too much. But since I don't have anything telling me otherwise, I'm just going to take a wild guess. Put it into the game, put it into context, and from there I can then tell, do I like it this way? Do I want it to be different? How do I want it to be different? Okay, doke. I like the color, actually. So, what we're going to want here is the basic idea. I want this to be the area of text, have a bunch of stuff here, the name, who it's from, the link, and all that. Then over here I want a play button, so let's try that. Give it a slightly darker coloring. I've already drawn that, actually. Well, I have drawn something like it, which is here. Game making is all about reusing what you have. It's not, but good software development does avoid unnecessary effort. We do want to put this on a different layer, again, so that we are not overwriting information from the cardboard layer beneath, and we can more easily move this play button around. So we want it to be rather towards the top. Or maybe we don't want to bake it in, actually. Yeah, I think we want this to be a separate thing. So, because I want this to be both start and stop, right? So, to that end, we're going to just leave this as it is, really. Although, yeah, I'm just thinking. The scrollable box is awesome, and I think what we do for the moment is we don't worry about this. Don't worry about it, make a thing, and then bit by bit we make more things. We add onto what we have, we make it do coolest things. That's the only way that you can do it, really. To that end, I'm actually going to make this the generic credit sprite, so that all of them use the same one. So what's in my head right now is I don't want to bake the play button into the sprite, because I want the play button to change into a pause button when you actually play the sound. That makes sense so far. That means that I have to make the button a separate thing. I do need to be careful that, because the scrollable box, there's a bit technical detail. I need to be careful that when I move this object, that everything that's connected to it, its button, moves alongside it. I don't remember exactly how I solved that. I know that I did solve it, because that's already something that I tackled elsewhere. At least I hope I did. I certainly do hope that I did. Otherwise, there's going to be many solutions. So, but for the moment, just do things one by one. I want to give this a sprite. I want to give it sprite credit is sprite menu credit. Give it this. And I think I forgot to upscale this. Yes, I did. So increase this in size. It is entirely too large, but that's fine. So now then, when we go into the game, it should create this, it should insert it into the box. Not too many things open. There we are. Yes, it should insert it into the box at the proper position. Which, this is a bunch of math, it just tells the game to leave a bit of space in between the individual instances. Yeah, let's give it a try. That is going to throw an error. Wonderful. Where was it? Right. Yes, I do remember. That's fine. So, what's happened? It seems that OBS doesn't pick up the error window, but that's perfectly fine. So objects can have parents in GameMaker that tell them the basics of how they work. And for the scrollable box, I've created the parent scrollable box element. I also need to tell this to perform event user 0. Otherwise it's not going to, because this is manually triggered only. And what it does, I've decided that I want to make this convention where all the functions, which strictly speaking GameMaker would want you to define methods for an object inside the create event, but I find that's just too much. I like to work with methods. I like to, in fact, do most of my work with functions. So defining them takes up a lot of space. So I've moved them into user event 0. That's fine. This is a strictly user event. It's only called when I want it to. Okay. Right, and here we see the box is going to communicate with the object here, and it's going to tell it, hey, you're being scrolled down or up, so move your sub elements like the button. Okay, so by the power of inheritance, that now works. And I'm not sure what's going wrong here. Let's check the save selector. So it's not drawing anything. I think it is supposed to, but it's been a moment since I have last worked with this, so let's see. Let's just uncomment this to make sure that the scrollable box is where I think it is. It is not quite, but it is vaguely where I want it to be. Actually, let's position it properly. You see this purple rectangle? Yeah, that's not where it's supposed to be. It's leaking into other screens. So that might have been the issue previously. So, going back to the sound, to the credits list, let's just close everything else. Okay. You know what, this should be wood. There we go. So the box is now the correct size, and naturally we have these coordinates define, well, I'm not giving coordinates, but I'm putting it in the middle of where the credits list is as well, since the credits list doesn't show much. It is pretty much pretending like the scrollable box is itself. So to that end, we've got multiple options, and I think the cleanest one is to simply move the credits list into place such that the scrollable box is fully within the credits screen. So for that, we go here, we go to the credits list, and we give it a better offset. So we want it to be pretty far in. So, you know, put it in the middle of the screen. Perfect. Lacking better ideas. Just put it in the center. That'll work. So, going back into the game. Once. There we go. So, here we see the area that our scrollable box is going to take up. We immediately notice one thing, it overlaps with this button here. That is suboptimal. So we don't want it to do that. Consequently, we're going to give it more of an offset so that it is underneath. Let's just see for that. Look at the spread for the what have I done? No, that's fine. This spread is not needed. Look at you. You are 24 pixels high. So we need an additional offset of 12 pixels at least. Let's call that 16 display pixels. There's not a ton of space to work with, but then again, especially in the vertical direction, the box can be as small as we want. It can scroll. So, now going back, objects, scrollable box. Actually, let's take one more look at it. Make sure that the position that it takes up now is properly on the screen. Maybe I need to shrink it. Make sure it doesn't overlap anything. Yeah, it does need to be smaller. Okay, doke. We can do that. Right. We can in fact do that very easily. The height is 144. I think that'll work out. Let's see. Let's actually do math. The screen is 1080 pixels high. That is 160? No. That's 180 display pixels with the reduced resolution. So if we are putting it 16 pixels down from the middle, that means that there are 180 by 2, there are 90 pixels below it, and we've scooted it another 16 pixels down. So there are 74 pixels to go beneath it. So it is going to come in rather tightly. Let's make it this size. As long as it works, everything's fine. So, after that, now it is time to uncomment this making the surface visible code, which only exists to check this kind of stuff. It only exists to check that I've put the box in the correct place and it is where I want it to be. Now, you'll notice something. There's nothing here. That is quite unfortunate, because I'm not positive what it is doing. So let's read up. What is it doing? It's the scrollable box does set the does set the object's coordinates when it accepts it, which is why we don't need to give it explicit coordinates. It's going to get moved anyway. Take a look at object sound credit here. Set box X, set box Y. That's all good. Consequently, I'm not sure what it is that I'm doing wrong. But sure, it will be rather simple once I do figure it out. So we want to create the surface, redraw it. Am I being super silly? No? No, this has a sprite. This should, by all means, this should get drawn out. Okay. And this being drawn. But when something goes wrong, you have the best course of action is that the game's taking a moment to launch, I think. No, it already hit the breakpoint as it is launching. Yes. When something goes wrong, that happens. It's important that you figure it out, which means if you know exactly what's wrong every time, of course, that's super easy. But do you really? No. Of course, at this moment, I'm not 100% sure what's going wrong. I've got ideas. So we're going to take what we know and we're going to we're going to research, check if our assumptions are correct, and from there, figure it out. So this is the one that we are looking at. So, yes. Okay. So, the scrollable list, I've looked at it. This one, right here. This one, it is properly drawing, or it is attempting to draw something. It is attempting to draw its surface out. I know that much. So, it is trying that. The problem is, I'm not sure. But for whatever reason, it's not giving, it's not putting the credits on it. Am I a big idiot? That is entirely possible. No? Okay, it catches here. And the sound credits does have an element. So it is going to create an instance and it is going to pass that to the box. Now, I'm not excluding the possibility that I am being very silly. What's happening here? So the box did detect that its position within the room is at the bottom right. We can tell that I'm more than slightly covering it, but we can tell that because the surface 0, x and y coordinates are properly set. It has its given sizes. Okay. So, we are now telling this to put itself in the box, and I'm doing something very funny of updating the position. Essentially, the contents of the box, there's a two-step system, because I want the contents to visually cut off as we scroll, but I also want them to be clickable, so the contents are in-game, as so far they are where they appear to be, but they're also being drawn separately, but that's not important. Am I a big idiot? I feel like I am. I feel like I'm really, really being that. Because I have a pretty specific idea of what's going on. Let's see. Save selector. When you're not sure, go to somewhere where you've used this code before. Figure it out. So. I don't know, I'm just gonna try a thing, yeah? I've got a hypothesis, so we add this into the box. This is supposed to be a private method, but I'm just gonna tell the box to refresh its contents. No. Okay. That's fine. Another option is I'm going to fill a bunch of elements into the box, see maybe it is being properly added, but it's not where I expect it to be. No, but it is receiving the elements. Okay. Oh, technical difficulties. Okay. So, we know, what do we know? We know these things to be true. The box is receiving the elements, they are being correctly instantiated. Okay, just create ground truth. I'm going to comment out this code so that it just creates. Okay. Okay, right? So, the problem is somewhere in the box's drawing, which I'm positive it's my fault. But what I've done now is I have made it so that we don't actually put the credit in the box, we just draw it out on the room. So it is visible, it is being shown. But when we add it into the box, something goes wrong. So let's say Ground truth. If we tell it to insert it at 0, what happens? Nothing. Uh-huh. But it draw itself, right? I mean, that's the entire point behind this code. Is that... Oh. We know the objects are going into the box. We know that here it is. This is the entirety of it. We know that the box is trying to draw itself, and that insofar is working. After all, it's the exact same code as here. The saved games are also a drawable box or a scrollable box. So I think I need to think this over. So this is not the best practice, but I'm going to keep things moving along right now. So instead, we are going to prepare a little something, which is prepare the play button, so that you can play and stop a sound credit in context. Okay, for that, we are going to go here. I want it to be a little frame with the play symbol in it, or a pause symbol. We're going to use 2 different frames of animation for that. So, what size are you, oh Mr. Play Button? You are 14 wide, and you are 1 and 8 and another 2, 3, 4, 5. So 8 plus 1 plus 5. This is a square. This is 14 pixels high and wide. Okay. Can work with that. So let's say we give it 4 pixels of padding on the side. Sure, why not? That would mean that 14 by 14, that would give us 18 by 18. So we've got 2 layers. We've got the button and we've got the box around it. Make sure this is nice and centered. Actually, I've only given it 2 pixels of padding. That actually isn't going to be enough. So, what are we going to do? We're just going to give it slightly more. Don't scale the image, but rather resize it. Give it another 2 pixels on the side. Okay, then just lazily go here, copy the colors that I'm using, so that I've got a unified style, obviously. Now I can access them from here, and I'll start with the border. Grid for that. This is actually not perfectly good. Oh goodness. This is 22 by 22. What's the grid going to do for me? No. Just draw out a corner. Like so. Doesn't need to be fancy. It needs to be a corner. Really, if you're going to take any advice from me, which is dubious as far as art goes, it doesn't need to be fancy. It can be simple. Simple, well-directed, consistent, beats anything. Okay, now, is it still properly positioned? Yes, there's 3 pixels between it and each border. It looks off, because of course it's got more of its weight over here than over here. But I'm willing to keep it for now. And then we need to, on the second frame, well, it's not really going to be a frame of animation in that regard. It's more going to be a different state that the button can be in. So, the second frame is going to be pause. We could also make it just stop, but I like pause. That is too far apart. Let's move it in. There we go. Simple pause and play button. Right. Now, I have another confession to make. I do really need to pee again. So, it is about that time anyway. I am going to take my second break for the stream. Stand up, stretch a little, pee, and have more water. Water is important. Recommend you do the same. Don't go too far. I'll be right back. Then I'm sure by then I will have figured out what the problem is. And then we can put the play button on the thing. See you then. Hey, I'm back. Predictably, would you like to guess what the problem was? Would you have guessed that the problem was me? Well, I haven't tested this yet, but I am almost positive it is. Yep. Right. So, it's a bit... It's actually not that technical. So, objects are drawn when their draw event triggers. GameMaker does this once every frame when it prepares what to display on the screen, in a very abstract sense. So it does that. It does that for each object. Now, you don't strictly need to define a draw event for all the objects. If you don't, if you just tell it, it looks like this, right? This is its sprite. That still works. GameMaker can work with the basic no explicit event drawing to make it easier on you. You can also, however, define an explicit event where you may want to do something fancier. In this case, it's what I'm doing right here actually. I've added a little text just to start working on it, where I'm showing not only the basic background, but I'm also showing what the asset's name is. Obviously this is not complete yet, but it's a start. So I'm telling the credit, if we close the game, where is it? Here it is. So I'm telling it to draw itself, and then on top of itself it draws the name. I should have just started doing this, but the point is, the issue was that if you don't have a draw event explicitly created, GameMaker will call draw self and that's it. But how the scrollable box works, this is, if you don't get this, that's absolutely fine. Instead of letting the objects draw themselves, it draws them onto a surface, which means it calls the draw event, and if that does not exist, then nothing happens. So you see where the issue lies there. You can't, if nothing happens, then it's not going to get drawn. Right, so wonderfully, we figured it out. This was more difficult than it should have been, but we figured it out. So, now then, now all that remains is to do all the rest, as we like to say. So we need to draw out all the data that we have, and we need to add the play button. We need to give that functionality to actually play the thing. And in the case of, I've just realized, I need to adjust this. This needs to be an array of sounds, because we want this to be able to support multiple sounds. So let's go back to object game real fast. Hop into user 3. There's a lot of data that needs to be initialized, so we've gone up to this many. Here we are. Okay, that'll work, I think. So from here, we no longer need to care really what the scrollable box does. We just need to make the sound credit behave properly. So, to that end, I want to start with making the sound credit play button. You can use underscores, but you can't use the hyphens. I think that is discriminating against a perfectly good character. Yeah, this looks good. So, we need to increase the scale of this sprite. Oopsie. We need to name it properly. Just realized, so this is the small version. And this is the large version without the suffix. So it's menu sound credit play button, which is a bit of a handful. But it is better to be explicit. So this times 6 is 132. Scale it up. Okay. So our sprite is ready. So we can go to the object and name this. No. Come on, maker. Cooperate. Object, menu, sound, credit, play, button. There we go. There's a create event to start with, because so what do we want out of it? Every time you make something new, it's a good idea. Well, naturally you want to think about what you're doing, but it really is a good idea to run down the list of what do I want it to do, what do I have, what do I need. So I want it to be this sprite, so sound credit play button. I want it to be this. I want it to, at this point, I think, yeah. I want it to take the entire list of sound assets. I could also tell it to take a single sound asset that I could change, but I want it to take the entire list, and that means that the play button, it is going to define, it is going to instantiate and show the scroll buttons for when there are sound assets where I've taken multiple snippets out of them. So, and assets is going to be a type array of type sound. So that tells us what data we are going to receive. I'm just going to define a constant real fast. Play frame equals 0. Pause frame equals 1. That way, this isn't necessary, but what I'm going to do is define functions. So, function. First off, I want this auto-generated comment out of the way. Function. Start playback. Play the sound. Set to pause mode. And Also, we want to, this is slightly advanced, we're going to create a callback to that to play mode when sound ends. Okay. And then further we're going to have a function that stops the playback, which regrettably there's no good way to not get technical here, but when we play the sound, it's going to tell us a sound ID, which we can use to identify the playback and stop it if we want to. So we're going to stop sound ID. This is going to let us stop the playback, and because we are controlling the button's state through a callback, we don't actually need to set it back to play mode here. So when we start playing the sound, naturally we want sound ID to equal play sound effect sound ID. Then we want the image index. Yes, we want the image index to be pause frame. And then I don't remember what this function's called. Used this before. Look that up real fast. Right, we're also going to want to do this. No, not necessarily. So, if this is a whole thing. Yes, we need to go in here. No. Sorry, I'm a little lost. Here, on sound finished is the callback that we want to look for. Here it is. Right. There it is. So this works a little weirdly, which is why I didn't remember exactly how it works. To my knowledge, in GameMaker you can't tell it to do a thing when a specific audio stops playing. But what you can tell it is when any audio stops playing, then do a thing. So it's going to call this event. We need to extract the sound ID and check, well, is this the sound that we care about? Now, this isn't 1000% safe. Actually, I think it is. Yeah, I think this is by sound ID. And then we want to, if the sound that we started did just finish, we want to go image index equals play frame. You want to go to play mode and reset sound ID to a nothing value. Okay. I also want to track in a separate variable whether we are playing a sound or not. Strictly speaking, I don't need to do this. I can infer this from the sound ID, whether it is currently defined or not. But I prefer this more explicit way. This is redundant data, and redundant data is dangerous. But in this case, it's fine. We're only setting it in 2 places. So we're setting that we are playing when we start the sound, and we're setting that we are not playing when we stop it. Now, the sound can stop naturally because it's finished, or we can stop it manually. But there's the beauty of callbacks. Either way, we'll end up in this event. And so we'll call the callback. So we don't need to duplicate and possibly make a mistake in the code between natural callback, between the natural end of the sound and the user click end. So, further, we need to why did I create this separate redundant variable? So that it's easier here. If we are playing sound, then stop the playback. Else, we are playing sound, so play it. I'm doing something slightly silly here. Obviously this makes no sense. I can't tell it to play a sound ID that I'm only defining here. So I wanted to play the first of the sound assets that I have been given. This, I guess let's just do this properly. Start with 0. There we go. So for the moment we'll only have the 1, so it's going to make no difference. But I do want to track which sound index I am on in case we have multiple sound assets. There are assets that are like that. So we want to be able to scroll between them. Oh, music. Chill. Thank you. Okay. Pardon me. We want to be able to scroll between them, so we want to start a specific sound. Now, I'd like to test that this works first before we go any further. But we can make the skeleton of it. So for that we're going to make a forward and back function. Which will do little more than, oh, there's going to be an entire thing. I'm going to have to make arrows, I'm going to have to display how many assets there are, I'm going to have to then hide the arrows or show them when it is time. So that's a whole bunch of stuff. And for the moment, I just want to see that this works with a single sound asset. So we're going to do just that. Now, you're not showing it, funnily enough, but you do have your sprites defined. So we can go back to the sound credit and say we can tell it to create the play button. Just fix that up real fast. Then we are specifically in the sound credit, so each sound credit is going to need a play button. So play button equals create instance relative. That's going to be, so we want it to be on the right side and up a bit. So I'm gonna say sprite width by 2, which is the very right border, minus sprite get width of the sprite play button itself. So now, instead of its middle being on the border, we have the borders overlapping. I'm further going to deduct, who knows, let's say 6 pixels. 6 pixels, display pixels, that is, of space between the two borders of this element and the button. Likewise, having it in the middle actually isn't the worst. Let's just try that. So, create instance, this is fine. So when I'm not giving an argument, I'm leaving it to its default value, which in this case, I've defined it that the new instance is vertically, in this case, vertically it's in the middle of this sound credit. This is the depth. So the depth means it's going to be just in front of this, so it's going to be drawn on top. Next, we need to give the class, which is object menu sound credit play button. And lastly, we need to pass it its data, which is assets colon data.assets. No, that would work because again, there's no such thing as private in GameMaker. We could reach into data and just extract the field assets, but direct access onto fields is bad. Please don't do it. I know Python has this entire concept of consenting adults, except well, Python also has private. You just have to know the magic word that demarks a private function. Anyway, I don't believe that's here or there or anywhere. So the point is, I'm going to use the getter function because then I know exactly what I am doing. And I know the context that I'm doing it. I know that I'm accessing this field in a reading manner. And if I want to do something fancy later, I've got this hook, and so I can do something different than just reading the field as it is. So yeah, that could work. The play button isn't going to do anything. That's going to be one thing for sure. But we can make it. So usually what I would do in this situation is I would create an invisible... What is Angelus? Well, hello, friend. Thank you for the raid. Um, I'm just deep in the code right here, but thanks for stopping by. Um, so, what I'm creating, it's not going to be perfectly visible right now, but I'm throwing an exception. I'm working on the credits screen for my game, where you can see where I got the sound assets, and you can see where I got the sound assets, and I also wanted to be able to play them. So working on that, but things are difficult. Yeah. It's good to see you. I've certainly got opinions on Game Maker, but I do think it's a really good engine, as much as I complain. As a bit of background, maybe, I am a professional Java software developer, so I've got a good bit of knowledge on the coding side, but I am relatively new to the game maker stuff, so it's certainly a different world. But I do think it fits to its purpose. So, feeling a bit flustered, I'll admit, but so what do I need to do? I'm going to change to a slightly chiller music. I still need to move the sub instance of the credit. Definitely takes some adjusting. Yes. Sometimes, listen, I swear this language is made by aliens, though, as fun as it is to meme on Game Maker, doesn't it go into the C ecosystem when you compile? I think it transpiles, right? So a lot of that, if you know that, it makes sense that it does stuff the way that it does. So I just really wished, like, I guess, yeah, GameMaker doesn't have static types. You can't declare types. That's fine. I just really wished I could make something private, That I feel like that would help the autocomplete too, because right now it really has problems figuring out the scope. Although I must say, this new code editor, I really, really like that. I've been working on this specific game for on and off 2 years now at this point. So I've worked a lot with the old editor, and that certainly was a joy. This is so much better every time that I type for, and it makes me happy when it slaps down the for loop. But what was I doing? I need to implement the function here. So this is inside a scrollable box. So I need to take the sub element. We've got the credit and we've got the play button. I'll show you as soon as it's possible. And I need to let it started with HTML, CSS, and Java, then went all C++, and C#. Yeah, that's the path some people go. Personally, I'm comfy with Java. It's treating me quite well. But it's not like you can just have a language. I mean, I've certainly used dozens of languages and frameworks at this point, because every project's different, and this project, it has GameMaker. Because, my god, I don't want to imagine how much I'd have to do to make hit idle with Java. So staying focused. So we've got the play button. We need to... I'm just gonna do this a little dirtily. I'm gonna move this... Add the X delta to its X coordinates, and we're gonna move the play button by X and Y. What is hit idle? I am glad you asked. I'm just gonna drop the game jolt link in the chat real fast. Fundamentally, it's a cutesy idol management game, you know, music idol. You are a high school teacher managing the idol club, and it's about that. It's about seeing your idols developing. It's training them. There's going to be the link if you're curious. It's fundamentally, I'd say, it's a puzzle game in that you play several mini games where my guiding game philosophy is I'm never going to rush you. This is not an action game. This is a thinking game. So there is never a time limit. You can always think through your solution, and you can think and check your solution before you submit it for the final time. It is music themed. It is very pixel arty, as you'll note from the screenshots. Partly that's because I'm not the world's greatest artist, but I also just like the style. Why is it? Sorry, have I made a complete mess? Why is it trying to create an answer choice, which makes no sense here? What? Am I making a mess here? Did I get my arguments wrong? No? So, sound credit create. This is where we are. Let's see. No, we are on line 12. Yes, we are on this call here. I feel like I'm being game makered. Did you notice this too? I explored around in Game Maker a bit and found the wonderful thing that there's no such thing as really an ID space. You can just say free, and then Game Maker will try to create whatever asset has ID free. You can also do this. Look, var pi equals pi. You do need to put it into a var, and then you can execute pi. And it will take whatever function happens to have the third, or whatever function happens to have index 3, and it will try to execute that. And it won't stop you. That should not work. It should stop me at the compiler, but it doesn't. But yeah, anyway, let's not rag too much on Game Maker. Yeah, I wanted to... I've always... It may not look like it, but I'm a bit of a huge weeb, and I'm also a fan of idol pop, so it's a culture that interests me, and mostly I wanted to make a game where you manage idols, but with the twist that there isn't a twist, as it was, because I felt at the time there were multiple such games where you have to abuse your idols, you have to push them beyond their limits, and I just wanted a game where everyone has a good time. So I set about creating it, and I didn't realize at the time what I was getting myself into. This is not my first project. I should know how to properly scope stuff, but it got a bit bigger than I had intended. It was intended to just be a practice project, really. But, so, let's see, one more time. Oh, I am missing a comma here. Okay, so that was funny. So that's x, y, depth, plus, right. So yeah, so I did in fact get game makered. I missed a comma, so instead of the object class, it got destructs reference as the object class, and happily it took the ID of that struct and resolved it to an object class, which was of course something completely random. Right, let's see. So, yes. Except for the part where it looks horrible, this is the basic idea. We've got... well, that's not right. That's not right at all. So we've got a scrollable credits line where I'm going to show you all the info about the sounds and you can play it. This is a very... I'm still just making it, so it's a bit rough, but hey, it's fundamentally working, except for the parts where it isn't. I need to look up the syntax of this, so text X comes quite early, it comes just after the font. Just move this out of the way. Mass right width at 2 plus 6 times 6. There, move that out of the way. Then I don't believe I've given the play button the click event, but I think I was just about to explain it when you came along, Mortis and friends. Right, this still needs a click event. A lot of the time I would use an invisible button that lies on top, but in this case I've got the button, I may as well just use it instead of using an invisible proxy. So let's do that. Toggle playback, and I need to, if not mouse on self, yes, kind of. So this little bit of code, this helps me handle when instances are stacked, which in this case it doesn't matter, but it's a good practice to always do it. What I also need to do is the entire game is mouse based. There is not keyboard input, there is only mouse. You control everything with the pointer and the mouse buttons, which means of course it has its slew of issues. In fact, I try to only use the left mouse button as much as I'm at all capable. But what I need to do is I need to register not a draggable, but register a left mouse pressed listener here, because I do want the game to be as accessible as possible. A large part of that is just in the design. I'm sure, Mortis, you've probably also heard of 4 of Pirate Software. I too, I'm not an active fan, but I keep listening to his stuff. The point is, it really did resonate with me when he talked about games shouldn't have accessibility modes. They should just be accessible. So, a large part of this, I've made sure that the colors are accessible even if you have non-standard vision. That's not right. I know what I did. I'm not running the event. I've made sure that the colors are accessible to non-standard vision as much as at all possible, instead of having a accessibility colors option, because like if I'm going to make a different color scheme for different kinds of vision, why don't I just use that to begin with? And we don't need it at all. But what I also have is you can't see my long arms perfectly well, but I did also allow you to bind click onto the keyboard, so space is standing in for click here. This is largely an idea. There are, you know what, let's just take a peek. So this is going to be your main room for most of the game. You can manage your idols, stick them into a band, and from here you can take them onto minigames. So the idea here is that you might not be as steady with a mouse, you might jitter a bit. So I need to read the requirements here. Here we have creating a dance routine. So twice in both halves, no immediate repetitions. Okay, 6 different moves. Doing the entire thing of making the perfect idol band. So, the idea of binding left click and right click to the keyboard, especially, is for when precision is required. Where we are just about to go into a minigame where you need to draw, and you don't need to draw like specifically, but I do think that well, for people who may have a rough time keeping the mouse steady where they want it while also holding click, I wanted to give an alternative. So here we see the dialogue side of the game. There is a main story in that regard, but a lot of it is also putting idols that have business together. Sorry, ignore the 0.27. I've since fixed that bug, but it persists in this specific save game. Picking out idols that have business together, sticking them in the same band so they spend time together, and listening to the dialogues that result. So, yeah, right. I don't want people to have a rough time here. So, you can control, was it? Yes. you can draw without actually using the mouse. Well, you do need the mouse. I might implement some kind of keyboard-based pointer movement. For now, you do still need to use the mouse for that. Anyway, back to this. I'm going to crash. No? Ah, look at that. One moment, music, please. Aha! It's working. Wonderful. So this is a bunch of copies of the same thing, so naturally this isn't going to... This is not very interesting right now. But at this point, I need to fill in some more data, naturally. I need to fill in each individual asset, but there's the basic idea. I also need to, because this is now overlapping onto the start screen, I need to fix that. Do these work? Oh goodness, they do work. Well, that's not intended. So, this is a issue that I have solved before. So we are going to find where have I done so, and what did I do? Presumably I just set the sub elements to invisible, but let's see. I see. No, here I changed it so that here I have a bunch of invisible buttons, so it doesn't really fully matter that they would draw outside of the box, because, well, they don't. They are invisible to begin with. Okay. That's fine. We've got options. I think what we do is, I don't like this, but we're going to do something similar to what the scrollable box does to begin with. We're going to create a draw event, which is just going to be draw self, but there's going to be a few more things later on. And we're going to call that event out of the sound credit. I don't like that because this is really messing with the internals. I have to set this. In fact, I'm just gonna make a tiny function here because I'm so opposed to messing with this that I don't want to set the visible flag directly. Instead, I want to make it the play button's own responsibility to control its visibility. Because that should be up to the individual objects to decide how it manages that. So, let's do that. Function hide is visible equals false. Yeah, it's not anything special, but it'll get you there. Then, at this point, I want to with play button event perform event draw, event draw normal. I'm not a huge fan, but this is probably the cleanest that we'll get out of it. So this will still call the regular draw event, but what's the idea? The idea is that the button yeah. Now this is weird. The idea was that the button should draw onto it should draw onto the surface when the credit is drawn, instead of triggering its draw event independently, which would allow it to break out of the surface, because at the time that it is drawn, the target draw surface is the application surface, not this box. So it is still there, but now it's not being properly drawn. What am I doing wrong? Let's see if I here. So the scrollable box does this in redraw surface by with object event perform EV draw EV normal with clause. Do that, yeah. Then I don't love doing this, I really don't. Well, it is invisible, but so is the sound credit. All that visible false really means is it's not going to trigger its own draw event. Or wait, I'm having a brain blast. I very distantly recall that if you just have draw self in a draw event, GameMaker treats it as though it didn't exist. I'm just gonna check. Okay, no, that is not the issue. Wonderful. So we do have the draw event explicitly created. I don't know. Let's try random things and see what happens. So if we don't hide it explicitly, it is correctly drawn, but it breaks out of the box. Give OBS a moment to catch up. It will break out of the box, like so. Then, what's that mean? So, at the time that it is being drawn, the target surface is not what I want it to be. So, accordingly, I do want it to be invisible and drawn only on demand. And the draw event is correct, as I've established. I have now explicitly implemented it. That's working. Okay. This be different. I'm a little stumped, I'll have to admit. We're doing the same thing here as we do inside the code for the drawable box, for the scrollable box, which upon adding an object, it sets the object to invisible, which that is something random. Sorry, I just opened the documentation of GameMaker, but because it didn't recognize visible for no. Yeah. It didn't recognize the proper context, so it opened some random page that happens to mention the word visible. See. I'll figure it out. That's not the most interesting thing right now, I think. No. We need to still... I've got a whole bunch of auto data to display, which we're just going to create a few more text builders. I do also need to create labels, but I didn't bother doing that. Also, look at it again. I had the idea that I'm going to put the data like roughly side by side, but looking at it now, I can put the name and author side by side, and then, well, the link can be a button. The link doesn't need to be written out because why would it? So then, maybe I think. Yeah. We can put these on top of each other. So we can go like so. We can just have the name and author builders, essentially. So you are this. You need a Y offset, which is sometimes you just gotta guess. Guess something, see if it's right, and if it's not, then you change it. Simple as. Then I'm going to use a magic trick, which is author builder is going to be a copy of the name builder, except that it's on me. Its Y is going to be, I'm gonna say 0. It's going to start at the top, or maybe what we do is we set these to vertically align in the center. Yeah. That way we have better control. It's more what you see is what you get. It doesn't really matter, of course, because I'm working with a fixed font here. Yeah. That looks fine. I know that it is always going to be aligned right here. And we of course also need to set the text. Data get author. And then we're just going to instantiate a builders array for the easiest access. So that means that I get to make a for loop, and I like doing that in GameMaker because it was a huge hassle in the old editor, and now it is a whole lot easier. So for array length builders, I.build. There we go. I am also going to need a label for these, like name and author, but I have a different system for that. I have a big old spreadsheet where I store all that translated data, and it would be a bit too much to edit that right now. That I will do off screen. But no, here we are. Isn't that lovely? So here we are. That's the basic credits menu. Now it just needs labels. It needs to be told the full data. It is going to need more different types of credits, and it is going to need, I think I need to make this slightly bigger, because I had the idea that I'm going to add little arrows underneath this button, so maybe they fit somewhere around here. Maybe that's an idea. This is just about the longest name that an asset is going to have. So I think maybe I've got the horizontal space and I'd like to save on vertical space, so I think I shall. So put arrows here-ish with a counter, like 1 out of 8 for those where it matters. And afterwards, I can add the labels, I can add the full data. I can also figure out how to make these play buttons behave properly. But thank you guys so much for stopping by, but that is actually about my time. Given that you so kindly rated me, let's see if we can't find another channel to go to. I need to see int. What's the category called on Twitch? It insists to show me stuff in German, so I need to guess what the German name is. I'm failing right now, but I can just software and game development. There we are. No results. Excellent. Can I click? I can click on the category. Right. Let's see. Can we locate somebody else who is suffering in Game Maker? That's not Game Maker. While I do that, thank you all so much for stopping by. I will be live tomorrow again from 9 a.m. Central European Time. It is currently 1 p.m., so 4 hours before now I start streaming, but you know, anytime that you want to check by, hang out, just watching, it's perfectly fine. That looks like it might be Game Maker. Certainly appreciate even just you being here right now. It was not Game Maker. Difficult. This person. Yes. Now I just need to identify how do I rate though. I haven't done this in a bit. But that person. I don't know this person, full disclosure. I have found them in the Twitch directory, but that person. Yes. Let's give him a try. As I said, I'm gonna hop off. Thank you all for being here. We'll be back tomorrow and every weekend after. Other than that, thank you all and goodbye. Have a lovely day.